There's something living in the back of your mind that you've never fully dealt with. You've tried, you've done the work, or at least you've told yourself you have. You've talked about it, journaled about it, maybe even sat across from a therapist and unpacked every layer of it. And yet somehow, in the quiet moments, when the distraction runs out and the noise settles, it's still there. That low hum of something unfinished, something that happened to you, or something you did, or something you failed to stop, and it left a mark that never quite healed all the way. That's not weakness. That's not a sign that you're broken or that you've done everything wrong. That's what unprocessed pain actually feels like when it takes up permanent residence inside a person. And what nobody tells you, what gets skipped over in every surface-level conversation about moving on, is that the pain itself isn't actually what's destroying your future. It's the regret wrapped around it. Because pain eventually will soften. Time does do something to raw pain. It doesn't erase it, but it dulls the sharpest edges. Regret, though, doesn't follow that same pattern. Regret doesn't soften with time. It calcifies. It hardens into a lens you start seeing everything through, and once it's there, it distorts every new person, every new opportunity, every new version of yourself that tries to emerge, before any of them even get a real chance. This video is not about toxic positivity. It's not going to tell you to just choose happiness or reframe your trauma into a gift. What happened to you was real. The loss was real. The pain was real. Nothing said here is going to minimize that. But what's also real, and what you might not fully believe yet, is that regret is costing you something right now, today. Not just emotionally, but in the actual shape of your daily life, in the relationships you can't fully open to, in the dreams you keep just out of reach so you can't be devastated when they fall, in the version of yourself you keep promising to become once you finally feel ready. You've been waiting to feel ready for a long time, and readiness hasn't come. That's not a coincidence. That's regret doing exactly what it was designed to do, keeping you still, keeping you safe, keeping you small, all while convincing you that you're just being patient. Stay with this, because what comes next is going to reframe everything. Here's what's actually happening beneath the surface, and why healing feels impossible for so many people who are genuinely trying. When you go through something that breaks you, real trauma, real loss, real betrayal, your brain and body enter a state of high alert. That's not a metaphor. Your nervous system physically restructures around the threat. It becomes hypervigilant, scanning constantly for signs that what happened before is about to happen again. This is your biology protecting you. It kept our ancestors alive, and in the immediate aftermath of something painful, it serves a real purpose. But here's the problem. That protective response was built for a world where threats were temporary, a predator, a storm, a physical danger that eventually passed. It was not built for the kind of wounds that come from people, from abandonment, from abuse, from watching someone you trusted become the source of your deepest pain. Those wounds don't have a clear ending, and so the alarm never fully turns off. What you're left with is a nervous system still braced for an impact that already happened, still guarding against something that is in the past, treating it as though it's perpetually present, and regret is the story your mind wraps around that state. It's the narrative layer that sits on top of the biological alarm, trying to make sense of why it can't stop firing. If I had just left sooner, if I had trusted my instincts, if I hadn't let that person get so close, if I had protected myself better, if I had been different, stronger, smarter, more aware, none of this would have happened. Those aren't just thoughts. Those are your mind's attempt to create the illusion of control over something that was, in many cases, completely outside your control. Because control, even false, retroactive control, feels safer than the terrifying truth that sometimes terrible things happen, and there was nothing you could have done differently. The cruelest dimension of trauma-based regret is that it turns you into both the victim and the defendant. You experience something painful, and then you put yourself on trial for it. You became the person who hurt you and the person they hurt simultaneously, and that internal trial doesn't have a verdict. It just runs forever, consuming the energy you need to actually rebuild your life. And here's what this does to your future in concrete terms. Every person who reminds you of the one who hurt you gets screened out before they even speak. Every situation that resembles the one where you were wounded gets flagged as dangerous before you've gathered any real evidence. Your capacity for trust, for hope, for genuine openness, it doesn't disappear. It just gets buried under so many layers of preemptive self-protection that it can't reach the surface. You're not closed off because something is wrong with you. You're closed off because your nervous system made a very logical decision, that staying guarded was safer than being destroyed again. The problem is that guarded and healed are not the same thing. You cannot build a future that's truly yours while standing behind a wall that keeps out everything you've been asking for. Now here's the piece that almost never gets addressed, and this is where the real work begins. When something painful happens, especially when it happens at a young age or when it comes from someone who is supposed to be safe, you don't just experience the event. You construct a story to explain it. A narrative that tries to answer the one question your mind cannot leave unanswered. Why did this happen to me? And because your brain is wired to find patterns, to identify causes, to locate the source of danger so it can be avoided in the future, the story it builds almost always centers on you. Not because you were actually responsible, but because it happened because of something about me is neurologically safer than it happened randomly and there was nothing I could do. The first story gives you a sense of agency, even if that agency is painful. The second story leaves you completely exposed to a world that can hurt you without warning or reason, so you built a story, and that story has been running quietly in the background of your life ever since. Maybe it sounds like, I am too much for people to stay. Maybe it sounds like, I attract people who hurt me. Maybe it sounds like, every time I let myself want something it gets taken away. Maybe it sounds like, I should have known better. I always should have known better. These stories feel like self-awareness. They feel like wisdom earned through pain. But they're not. They're conclusions drawn from the worst moments of your life, during the periods when you had the least access to clarity, the least capacity to see yourself or the situation accurately. They were survival narratives, not truth. And then you've spent years living inside them as if they were. The most dangerous thing about these stories isn't that they're painful, it's that they're self-fulfilling. You expect to be abandoned, and you unconsciously create distance before someone can get close enough to leave. You expect to fail, and you stop just short of giving your full effort so the failure feels chosen rather than imposed. You expect to be hurt by the people you love, and you stay in relationships that confirm that expectation because at least that kind of pain is familiar. The story doesn't just describe your past, it generates your future. And here's what separates this from regular life regret, the kind about career choices or missed opportunities. Trauma-based regret operates at a much deeper level. It doesn't just affect your decisions, it affects your identity. It tells you not just what happened, but who you are. And identity-level beliefs are the hardest to see clearly, because they're not things you think, they're things you think from. You can't question a belief you don't know you're holding, so the work here is not about thinking more positively or trying harder to let go. It's about surfacing the story, pulling it out from the background noise of your daily life and holding it up to the light long enough to ask, is this actually true, or is this what pain taught me to believe? Those are very different things. Everyone tells you to let go. Nobody explains what that means in practice. Because letting go doesn't look like what you've been imagining. It doesn't look like one transformative moment of peace where the weight finally lifts and you wake up healed. It doesn't look like no longer feeling anything about what happened. It doesn't look like being able to think about the person or the event without any emotional charge at all. That's not healing. That's dissociation. And there's a significant difference. Real letting go looks like this. It looks like the moment you're about to collapse yourself to make someone else comfortable, and you notice yourself doing it, and you don't. Not because you've perfected some coping technique, but because you've become more loyal to your own wholeness than to the fear of what happens if you take up space. It looks like the first time something triggers the old story, the familiar sting of rejection, the old panic when someone goes quiet, and instead of immediately building a case against yourself, you pause. You recognize the pattern. You say to yourself, clearly and without drama, this is old. This is the wound talking. This is not necessarily what's actually happening right now. That pause, that small, barely perceptible gap between the trigger and the story, that is what healing looks like in real time. Not the absence of the trigger, the widening of the space between the trigger and your response to it. Letting go also doesn't mean the person who hurt you gets absolution. This is one of the most stubborn misunderstandings around forgiveness and release. You don't have to decide that what they did was okay. You don't have to welcome them back into your life. You don't have to reach out, reconcile, or in any way involve them in your healing. Releasing the grip of what happened is something you do entirely for yourself. Not for them, not for the relationship, not because the hurt wasn't real or valid or deserved to be acknowledged. You release it because carrying it is costing you more than it's costing anyone else. They have likely moved on. They're probably not lying awake running the same loops you are. The person most imprisoned by the weight of what happened is you, and that is not your fault, but it is your responsibility to address. Now here's the part that matters most, the part that actually moves the needle in practice. Release doesn't happen through the mind, it happens through the body first. Trauma doesn't live in your thoughts, it lives in your tissues, in the tension you carry across your shoulders, in the breath you hold without knowing you're holding it, in the way your chest tightens when a certain name comes up or a certain kind of silence falls. Your body has been carrying what your mind hasn't been able to process, and no amount of intellectual understanding is going to release what's stored there. This is why people can spend years in therapy gaining insight, real, valid, genuinely useful insight, and still feel the same familiar weight every morning. Because insight without physical release is like understanding exactly why a knot is tied without ever actually untying it. The beginning of real release is physical. It's slowing your breath down long enough to notice where you're holding the tension. It's letting yourself cry when the grief wants to move, not performing emotion but actually allowing the release that your body keeps trying to complete. It's movement sometimes. It's stillness sometimes. It's putting a hand on your chest and telling your nervous system something it's never been told convincingly enough. It's over. You survived. You're not in that moment anymore. That's not therapy speak, that's biology. Your body needs to receive the signal that the threat has passed before it can stop preparing for it. And slowly, not all at once, not in one breakthrough session, but slowly and undeniably, the weight begins to shift. Not disappear, shift. From the center of who you are to something you carry more lightly. From the lens you see everything through to something that happened that shaped you without defining you. The difference between those two things is an entirely different life. Here's what I want you to understand about who you are right now, after everything. You were shaped by pain that came before you were ready for it. Pain that arrived through people who were supposed to be safe, through circumstances that were outside your control, through a version of yourself that was doing the absolute best they could with what they had at the time. And that person, the one who survived all of that, deserves more than to spend the rest of their life apologizing for how the surviving looked. The guilt you've been carrying for how you coped, the walls you built, the people you pushed away, the opportunities you sabotaged because getting hurt again felt like more than you could survive. That guilt is not useful anymore. It was never punishment you deserved. It was just the cost of getting through something that would have broken people with far more resources than you had. You did what you had to do to survive. And now, here in this exact moment, survival is no longer the only option available to you. Because there is a version of your life waiting that is not built on guarding, not built on preparing for the next loss, not built on staying just small enough and just hidden enough that nothing can reach you. There's a version of your life where the things that broke you become the exact reason you can hold space for others going through the same thing. Where the depth of pain you've known translates directly into the depth of connection you're capable of. Where the sensitivity that made you vulnerable to being hurt in the first place becomes your greatest asset in a world desperately short on people who actually feel things deeply. That version of you is not waiting for the past to be resolved. It's not waiting for the wounds to be invisible. It's not waiting for you to arrive at some perfect, unmarked, healed version of yourself before it shows up. It's waiting for you to decide, just once, clearly, without conditions, that the story the pain wrote about you is not the final word. Your past happened. It was real. It mattered. But it is not a life sentence. It is not a definition. And it is not, no matter how long it has felt this way, all that you are. The people who make it through this, who actually build something beautiful on the other side of real pain, they don't do it by finally getting over it. They do it by refusing to let it be the ceiling. They carry the wound and they build anyway. They feel the fear and they let people in anyway. They know the risk and they choose to want things anyway. Not because the fear is gone, because they decided their life was worth more than their fear. You are not behind. You are not too damaged. You are not the exception to healing that you've quietly started to believe you might be. You are someone who has been through something real, who has been waiting for permission to finally lay it down. This is that permission, not from me. I'm just a voice in a video, but from the part of you that has known all along that you were meant for more than this weight. That quiet part that never stopped believing, even when everything else went dark. That part has been right about you this entire time. The regret, the guilt, the grief, the stories, they were never the truth about you. They were just what pain looks like when it doesn't have anywhere to go. Give it somewhere to go. Let it move through you instead of living in you. And then turn around and face what's in front of you, fully, completely, with everything you have, and start building the life that was always meant to be yours.